Are we living in a post-racial America? We wanted to see if we could decide if racism was still present. What method should we use, and how could we put all our data together and determine if it's actually present? Well, we started where anyone with questions start, by researching. After a lot of research, it looks as though there is more racism than you would think. As unfortunate as life is, it seems pretty prevalent. Between the unfair murders and the police singling out a race, and even just daily life on the streets, it seems as though there's a lot of racism around. So what do we do next? We put together a hypothesis. Racism actually sounded to be more generational. Older generations had more problems with racism towards a millennial than, say, the other way around. So we decided to make an experiment and divide it into two groups. Start with a basic question like, who would you rather interact with or hug? And then we would display a combination of either white, black, or Hispanic, but only a combination of two. We hypothesized that the older generation may prefer their own race, while younger generations may just say both, in an attempt to be open to both possibilities. After trying a few different settings and a few different age groups, our data was a little more clear. The younger generation tended to say both, which was more often than the older group. Why? Well, we have a few theories. The younger generation is more conscious of the past. They learned more history about racism and prejudice, and they're able to learn from these mistakes. It's also impossible that a lot of millennials are part of biracial families, and so that created a new generation of people who were born without or very little prejudice. Or even if the person didn't come from a biracial family, there's a lot of information out right now, like Ancestry.com, that can make you more aware of different races and different nationalities that you have inside you that you may not have known previously. So that can also make somebody more aware and more tolerant, knowing that they come from a diverse background as well. It seems it's not as black and white as they thought. To touch on technology a little bit and how it has a role in racism, there are a lot of videos out there showing the unjust nature of some people and the prejudice and discrimination that occur. Well, with a whole world eager to weigh in and tell the filmmaker, the aggressor, or even the victim exactly what they think, it has almost become a vigilante justice system where people are able to shun or verbally bite back the person who's perceived to be the aggressor. It's technology of this sort that could be a modern-day deterrent for racism, and maybe we can be thankful that technology does still have its positive uses. Or maybe we could even attribute it to the successful Black Americans who have struggled to the top today. Sure, people like President Obama and Oprah, Beyonce and Damon John, they have all clawed their way to the top and paved the way for future generations to believe that it doesn't matter what their skin tone or nationality is, they can achieve greatness too. But to shift gears a little bit, it's not to say that the Black Americans, such as them, did not have a harder road than, say, a white person. We're sure they did. But why did they have a harder time to get to the top than maybe the next generation? It's because we believe that the older generation have not fully come to the realization that racism is on its way out. How can we tell? Well, to digress, the experiment proved that older people actually chose a race, which was interesting. We interpreted that as their awareness of the situation. Were their choices genuine and sincere? We're not so sure. Maybe they chose because they could figure out what the study was and didn't want to sound racist. Or maybe they made their sincere choice and it was actually one race over the other. The point is that the older generation didn't give much explanation to their choice. But what they did do was make a choice, and that tells us enough. It tells us that they are making a conscious decision of what race they are choosing and what's happening. Comparatively, the younger generation opted for both, or even they just questioned the personality of the girls presented to them. or they would just decide based off of the open demeanor versus a closed demeanor. Younger generations were very inclined to tell us exactly what went into their choice versus the older generation's silence on the situation. We believe that we were able to conclude that yes, we may still be living in a post-racial America, but it seems to be generational and on its way out.
With this being my first social experiment, it was pretty cool. It's pretty fun. I ended up learning a lot about people and their natural behaviors, but nevertheless, what I feel like we could have done differently maybe, or what I would have liked to have done, is maybe physically hugged people. Maybe because it's just me. I'm a bubbly person. I'm a very affectionate person. So just to see how many hugs I would get from a stranger, that'd be interesting to find out. But nevertheless, I feel like asking and surveying was just as good. I look forward to doing more social experiments just to really get an eye opener of, wow, this is really, legit. So, my favorite part about doing this social experiment is when we asked a group of kids who would they feel more comfortable with interacting with, or who would they feel more comfortable giving a hug to if they asked for one. A lot of them said that either one. It really depends on the personality and how they're approached, and I really appreciate the genuine answers and the eagerness of participation that I got from the kids. So it was really fun. It was really refreshing and an eye-opener. So I feel as if the newer generation, the younger generation, everyone who's, I want to say, 23 years old and under, really don't see this world as, a post-racial America. I feel as if maybe the older people who we came across, was more biased to their own, or preferred one over the other. So, nevertheless, I learned a lot, and it was fun. And I most definitely look forward to doing this again. Thanks. And in case you haven't figured out by now, it's me, Erica. So so this wraps up our psychology project on personal behaviors.
Alex will go.
Out of these two girls, who would you feel more comfortable interacting with or giving them a hug if they asked for it?
I'm good with either.
Either one?
It depends on the personality.
Don't worry, Alex. Get out.
No worries.
It was out of nowhere, but it's all in the heart.
I don't know, I feel like it's like how they approach me. If they approach me in a really cool vibe, then yeah, sure.
No worries. Same for you?
I mean, I would say,
The other one looks too cold. So,
I would go for the right, because she's more charming looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like snow.
Thank you guys so much. Y'all enjoying it.
Yes. Hey, I seen that. Nice solid, bro.